This is the Buffalo Community Podcast, all about the greatest small town in the USA, the people in it, and how it all works together. Here are your hosts, Tyler Reese and Mark Benzer.
Hey everybody, it is the Buffalo Community Podcast. I'm Tyler, sitting next to Mark. Luke's behind the screen here. And we're coming at you with the city council candidates and the mayoral candidates. This is actually going to be a two-part series. So if you are seeing this as the mayors or the candidates, those are going to be two different videos, but they're going to be running simultaneously. But right now, all the interviews are done.
Yep.
So I think we're both glad that's done, because you and I are both not interested in politics very much. But
we got it done.
Yeah, we got it done. And we're here because of you asking us to do this. Mm-hmm. And it's very important because we love Buffalo. We want to see it succeed. And if we can help you guys make that decision come November 8th, that's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. But right now, let's get into it. We're going to determine the order that these will go in. So again, two videos, mayors and then candidates on the other one. So I just wrote here is Terry Lockmeyer is going to be heads, Jeremiah Patrick is going to be tails. So I'm gonna flip the coin here, and that's going to determine who you're going to see come up on the screen next. Is that
tails?
Dang California ones. Yep, that's tails. So Jeremiah, you're up. All right, let's jump right into it. We've established our order. Jeremiah, you're either second or first. We don't know right now because we haven't established that yet.
All right.
But
wait,
we're going to
what?
We're going to give you a chance to introduce yourself, and we're going to go over a few of the questions that we sent out to all the candidates for the mayor and council members, and go over so we can bring you, the voter and viewer, all 250,000 of you, a little bit more information about what's going on in our local government. So,
great.
Mike's all yours.
So my name's Jeremiah Patrick. Been here for a couple of years, came out here, married my wife. Wife actually spent a chunk of her time growing up here. She has the claim to fame being fifth or sixth generation resident of this area growing up. Our daughter now would make her sixth or seventh at this point, but goes back a long ways, and it's one of these things that she may have traveled a little bit farther from home, but she kept on being drawn back here over and over, bought a house here. And then when I had a chance to meet her, it was the exact same thing. It was like, well, do we want to go here? Do we want to go there? She's an engineer. I'm an engineer. You know, you can basically take your skills and go anywhere you want in the country. But we kind of said, you know, Buffalo's pretty darn nice, and we like it. I mean, small town charm, small town appeal, and work's taken me to a lot of different places. I've been to a lot of different cities for work of one variety or another, and I like that small town charm. I want to raise my daughter in it, and I want it to be around for when she eventually has a family and says that's a good thing to have here too.
Sure. Well, we're gonna jump right into the questions that we sent out there. So thank you for coming in. Mm-hmm. And one thing, Mark and I, when we're deciding, hey, what should we ask? We did ask the public. What do you guys want us to hear? What do you guys want us to ask? So the first one we're just gonna jump right off is, what is one thing the city is doing very well, mm-hmm. and one thing that the city needs to improve upon?
Sure. So the thing the city does really, really well is we've hired some very, very excellent people. So I've been going to city council meetings for about the last 3 years now. I routinely go. I run the Buffalo Watchdogs page on Facebook. And so I go to these meetings, I listen and I hear, and sometimes I have questions. Primarily in the last year or so, especially with the drought, the questions have been water-related, utility-related, things of that nature. We've been making large expenditures into those areas, so people have had questions, especially this year as well, rates. I can go in, I can send an email to them. They will give me not only the time of day, but they'll walk me down through everything. Somebody asked me while I was on the campaign trail a question about rates. Went over, tried to talk to Jason Newsberger. He set up a time. I came into his office, sat down, spread out the whole budget, and said, here's everything. Talked to Kara Hess, who's the head of water department, and asked her, okay, so what about this for water? Do we have a serious issue? We've got this many people. And she went over as much of the data as she possibly could down to a technical level. Like I said, I have a technical background, so that was very comforting to be able to talk on that high of a level. So we hire some really, really good people, and we receive a fair amount of benefit from that. Now, on the flip side, what the city could improve on is our long-term planning. So pavement improvement plans, perhaps you've heard that phrase tossed around a couple of times. What that's effectively saying is they're going to send a truck, almost like a Google Maps vehicle, around and record all the roads in town. And then they're going to go over that and they're going to figure out which ones are the absolute worst in town. Now, on Tuesday night, I had a quick chance to ask the finance director, do we have like some sort of long-term plan for replacing infrastructure? We don't. As I've gone around and I had a chance to knock on doors and talk to people, I was fortunate enough to meet somebody who works in the finance department in Albertville. Do you know the cost to replace about 3/4 mile of road? Like actual replace?
Are you asking us or are you asking?
I'm asking you.
I don't.
No.
Take a guess.
3/4 of a mile is probably $175,000.
You're off by an order of magnitude almost. It's $1 million. To replace 3/4 mile of road, like actual replace, like it's degraded to the point where you just can't throw tar on anymore, that's $1 million at this point. So Buffalo has about 70 to 90 miles of road. I think it's like 76 or 84, somewhere in there. But everything gets old. Infrastructure gets old. Things need to be replaced. And I don't see the cost of anything going down. I only see things going up. And so it behooves us, I think, to really spend more time looking into long-term replacements. Division Street, which just got tore up, was kind of fortunate because we have absolutely old water mains and sewer mains down there. Highway 25, it's going through the same thing. It's going to be replaced. Do you remember last year when Lake Buffalo became unswimmable for like a month or something like that, or 2 weeks?
Yeah, that happens every year, though.
Well, I mean, more so than usual. Not just green, but
Sure.
actual.
Yeah.
That was a sewage line break because that sewage line is something like 80 years old. So I would say that the main thing that we're going to be doing, if I have an opportunity to have my say on it, is start looking at long-term replacements. I don't want to take out loans or bonds for it. We apparently have taken out $2 million worth of bonds for road replacements in the last 5 years, and that's taking out loans to do maintenance makes me really nervous. So
Sure.
I think that would be the biggest thing, if I could put my finger on it, what I'd like to see.
Sure.
Jump to 7.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
that seems a good one.
All right. So, what is your plan to address the cost of utilities? Can they be brought down, and how?
So some yes and some no. So the very, very short version. At a macro level, at a federal level, at a state level, the drive has been away from energies which are long-term reliable, specifically that you can pump them out of the ground, you can store them, and then you can use them up as needed. Gas, coal, nuclear, we've had a ban on since 1994. So we haven't really built any of that. In fact, we've been bringing it down. We've been replacing it with solar and with hydro's been banned since 1994, with solar and with wind. Here's the problem. The sun isn't shining all the time. The wind isn't blowing all the time. Battery technology just does not exist to be able to store up enough power to be able to allow people to not need anything else except for those things. We just don't have that technology there. So because power plants are going down, demand, even if demand stayed the same, we didn't use any more, supply is going down, so it's going to get more expensive. Natural gas is getting more expensive. These things we can't touch. But we do specifically have loans in the utilities departments. Those things we can emphasize and those things we can pay down. So that specific aspect, we could emphasize those loans to be paid down first, and then we can then in turn put those rates down. Going back to the infrastructure thing, like I was talking about, we only have one electrical substation in Buffalo. So talking with Jason Musburger, that's a serious issue because if we have a point of failure there and that substation fails, we could lose power to a significant part of town for quite a while, which I don't want to see that. I know nobody else wants to see that. Mm-hmm. So again, back to that long-term planning.
Sure. To follow up on a little bit of the utility part is I feel as hosts, we need to push back just a little bit.
Sure.
Anything in government, if you pay off the debt, they're just going to find a way. And government, is just going to spend the money they're already collecting.
Yep.
What's to say that? How does that change it? I mean, is it rewriting the entire city code?
So it's not necessarily rewriting the city code, but the movement, from what I understand, has been to take more of the electrical department and separate it slightly more. So they're more in control specifically of the electrical department. previous years when the golf course was around, the city would regularly reach into the water department or the electrical department and use it as a piggy bank and just say, here's $300,000, $500,000 worth of debt, however much it was.
Sure.
We're going to pop up that. If we start isolating it a little bit more and the electric department is solely responsible for the electrical department, maybe they give $500,000 or $1 million a year to the city funds just as effectively some sort of transfer. That might be a way to be able to start isolating that and try and take a look at the same thing for other utilities as well.
Okay, so isolation is a
Yeah.
big thing. Okay. When we ask this, there's a big building downtown as the government center.
Oh, yeah.
What specifically is your vision for the government center? And ideally, what would you like to see here?
So
I'll clarify. What would you like to see there? And what is like it may not be reasonable.
Sure.
Too.
So-
And we're okay with that. Everybody knows the question.
my dream to see there would be to create some sort of small business incubator. Make it like a 1 or 2 story building of some sort, and you can bring in people, have successful business leaders in Wright County, be on a board, people pitch their idea, give them an opportunity to be able to have a year or something like that, maybe discounted utility rates or something, give them a chance to get their business started, because then, hey, if they're going to start their business here, then they just might try and keep on their business, having their business here, or we'll see support businesses begin to pop up or start to make inroads into Buffalo. I want to see that drive of culture for small business, because at the end of the day, small business is really what drives a change, and it's what really the thing that disrupts stuff. I mean, nowadays we typically see it being bought up by bigger companies, and then we see that then trickle down, but it's still small businesses that driver. Second thing I'd love to see there, which is, this is more the thing that I've really heard going around knocking on doors for the last couple of months, community center and a restaurant. So personally, I would love to see the old theater get turned into a restaurant, but people have brought up that maybe up on the hill would be a really nice place to see a restaurant, because then you have that nice view overlooking the lake. So one of those things might be interesting to see. Personally, I mean, a community center, like I've heard, is like $40 million is the price tag they want. And I don't think that would include demolition, but maybe we look at it where it's every year we spend another $500,000, $1 million to demolish another chunk over and over, or something along those lines. Because what I really want to go into that area is I want something that's going to complement it. That's a very, how often do you actually get to see 6.5 acres, 6 acres, whatever it is, all of a sudden appear in the middle of a heavily developed area, a very mature area.
Yeah.
So whatever's going to go there is going to have its thumbprint on all of that. So, and I guess the thing that's concerning to me at this point is that the current direction of the city, based on the request for proposal that was put out by the Economic Development Board of Wright County, which the city is part of, is saying we want to see high-density housing, 5 and 6 stories, which 300 plus units, something like that, which is concerning to me because I've got a little kid. I love to come into Sturgis Park. I love to walk around downtown. I love that slower pace of life. And if anything, if you drop 300 plus cars alone, assuming each of them only has 1 car instead of 2, your traffic's already going to skyrocket. We had a number of people that worked in the government center, but they came and they went. These are people who are going to stay and go and stay and go and stay and go and stay and go, which has me really concerned for that specific area. So okay. I was actually part of the feedback process that was given for that. And I actually attended the meeting where they went, well, you guys may want a community center, but high-density housing is probably going to win it at this point. So
Sure. Okay.
Got it. On a related note, I guess I'll go to 4. With Buffalo growing, but not quite the rate of surrounding cities, Monticello, St. Michael, how does a city like ours become more competitive in attracting enough business, commerce to help satisfy the city needs for operation costs and move forward toward building amenities in the want column, like the community center you touched on, or trails?
So, let's see, what was the question again? Sorry.
It's all right. It's a long one.
Yeah. Moved out.
How do we attract people? How do we attract people here to Buffalo?
Well, so from what I read from that question then is specifically I'm looking for something that I can afford, right? Somebody fresh out of college, fresh out of high school. How can I get something that I can afford? And what I want to see for Buffalo is I want to see balanced growth. I want to try and avoid the trends that we've seen in other areas in Wright County like Otsego, St. Michael, or Monticello, where they've built out and they've built so aggressively and so quickly, but we don't actually see the rates of housing or the cost of housing drop anywhere around there. If nothing else, it stays high, and it's going higher at this point. So I also kind of want to avoid what's starting to happen in Monticello. I was just driving up towards Big Lake the other day, and there's a great big chunk on Main Street of Monticello that's been completely leveled, apartment block. Because as you start to remove the older buildings, you start to lose that character, that small town charm that you have, and you start to feel a little bit more like you're another part of the city. Like Minneapolis is reaching out its hand, and it's just going to be a sprawl all the way out. I said that I wasn't really thrilled about tall apartments in downtown. I hear the idea was that they'd be market rate, but the question I have at this point is market rate affordable? In the same way that you were thinking that right out of college, something that would be affordable for you.
Yeah, so how do we become more competitive with that? To compete with St. Michael,
Sure.
To compete with Monticello, to compete with Albertville and Otsego?
I guess the direction that I would start taking a look at would be talking to the developers who want to build and say, this is what we're looking for. Because at the end of the day, the city has control over zoning, has control over platting, and say, we're looking for things that meet these specific standards because we want to attract this kind of person or this kind of thing. We're looking for houses that cost in about this target range because there's something missing from our community. We want to work with you. You want to develop the area. We want you to help us fill that hole.
Sure. Okay. This is kind of piggybacked on the both previous ones. It was a question, and he had said he had moved out here after college and lived briefly in an apartment. Do you think there's more demand for multifamily zoning for our growing city that has more housing diversity?
Is there more demand for specifically the zoning?
Yeah. For if you built multi-units,
Sure.
are they going to fill up? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing?
So I think we're at the point now where we've never really seen anything quite like this, where it doesn't matter how many units you build, it doesn't matter how wide you build, it doesn't matter how tall you build, it doesn't matter how expensive it is, it's going to get filled. So at this point, again, my background is technical, and this is one of these things that we've never seen anything like this before. So I think developers like them because they're cheaper to build, but I think that it's something that's very, very dangerous for a community that prides itself on being a small town to embrace because they go up, they never go down.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. What is one hard truth or misconception about running a city that voters should know, and how do you plan to address that?
So I'd say one of those is that the mayor isn't in fact all powerful. That's one of those things where I've gone around, knocked on doors, and somebody goes, well, what does a mayor do? And I go, well, the mayor is effectively a councilman with a couple of frills and a special title. Well, what do you mean? We have a type of government called weak mayor. So at the end of the day, what council and mayor actually are is that we're in fact liaisons or advocates between the public and the local government. So it's our job to take the will of the people, take what people are telling us, and when zoning comes up, when hiring, firing, all sorts of stuff like that, changes to ordinance, it's our job to be able to go, this is what we're hearing, this is the vision we have for the city, let's reconcile that a little bit. It's actually the city administrator that runs everything day to day, so yeah.
Okay. From the council forum in previous weeks, what was your favorite question to answer? And is there one that you'd like to explain or expand on?
Sure. So I think my favorite one so far has been communication. This is something that, again, I started a Facebook page entirely just to give people more clarity and context of what exactly is going on in these meetings. I want to see commission meetings start to get recorded. Planning commission, HRA, airport, because this is where a lot of work is actually done before you even see stuff hit the council. Zoning, platting, tax incentives, that's where all this stuff actually goes on. And I think that would go a long, long way towards clarity and transparency. Now, something that I'd like to correct, well, I I screwed up at the last forum. I had an idea that we have a budget of $10 million. Well, we don't. We have a budget of $50 million. But the thing that I kept on going to every single time that we were discussing the budget was what they're talking about is specifically the city's section. That $40 million is things like the water department, the electrical department. I forget what they're specifically called, but they're separate funds and they're effectively run like businesses. So they're underneath the umbrella, but they're not the thing that's primarily talked about because they kind of run themselves.
Sure.
So there were a lot of claims made, and that's one that I got wrong. And so in the interest of transparency, we're actually going over all the different stuff that went on during that last forum, and we're going to try and come out and show we've actually gone back, done the work. Here's this, here's where it's backed up, here's where it's not.
I want to add something to this because I attended one of those forum meetings. Is in a couple of the questions I thought it got me thinking, and that's usually a dangerous zone to be in.
Sure.
But at some point, isn't it the citizens' responsibility to get involved and be interested and to look for information, and maybe the city to just put it in one spot versus we need everything out there on every single avenue?
So, yes, it is. However, I've also had the opportunity to try and do that. I've managed to get in, I've made my voice heard, and then I was told, well, you're biased, so it doesn't matter. That was September 7th of last year during a workshop where I had come in, I had given my opinion, and
What do they mean by bias?
So specifically it was talking about the old government center.
Sure.
3/4 of the people said we don't want to see high-density housing. They said we want to see a community center. And the feedback that was then given from council and the mayor was, I mean, these people are biased. This isn't really a really good way to determine what's going on. So there have been a lot of opportunities. ALO, there were a large amount of people that tried to get engaged with the city, but the problem that's happening is that they get engaged, they talk, they go down the avenues, and then they find out that it's like they ran into a brick wall. They're not being listened to at all.
Sure. And then to follow it up, I don't mean to be confrontational at all or anything like that. Is it the perception of it or the misunderstanding of, because $40 million, we don't have $40 million. And yeah, everybody would love to have that. But nobody wants to pay for it.
Right.
I mean, is it they're actually running into it, or is it a perceived brick wall of, you know what, dang, it's a hard truth of maybe we need this to get to that next level.
When you're saying the $40 million is...
for a community center.
So I'm honestly nervous about anything that looks like that. I'm nervous that the city's talking about about throwing it out in a vote and bonding it all out at once. I'd much rather attempt to take it slower and really see what actually fits, because if it's $1 million spaced here and there and there and there, and okay, well, it looks like we actually need this actually fits our needs at this point, let's build on like a $2 million or $500,000 section versus a giant spend. I'd rather take something along those lines far more than just one giant spend all at the same time.
Sure. Okay. I think before we get to the speed round, the ones you said you were mostly nervous about, is I kind of look at that and respectfully, I look at it as just $1 million doesn't go a long way anymore. I'm 3/4 of a mile of road.
I know.
So, I mean, that's a really tough one. I mean, for anybody that's listening, it could be just, and this is my own opinion, could just be a hard truth of we can't afford it.
And again,
we love it, but we can't afford it.
This is one of these things that I'd like to take a look at, really as hard as possible, and figure it out.
If people want it, try and get it.
Basically, if you're interested in seeing it, I want to work with you. If you can find a grant that's going to give us money so that we're not going to lay everything on people's shoulders, because the worst thing at the end of the day would be to build that community center and every single person who wanted it is priced out of the town.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's get to the fun ones.
Okay.
The fun?
The fun.
The hard hitting.
Oh, the hard hitting, yes.
The reason he's here.
Oh,
dear.
yes.
Oh dear.
Right?
Yeah.
What's your favorite food?
Jaeger schnitzel.
What's Jaeger schnitzel?
So you take pork loin, you hammer it down to about 1/4 inch thick, and then you throw it in flour, you throw it in egg, you throw it in breadcrumbs, you deep fry it, and then you put a brown mushroom sauce over the top.
I love French cuisine.
German.
All right.
I love it. What's your favorite hobby?
At this point, it's probably going to be riding on my motorcycle.
Sure. What kind of motorcycle?
1980 750 custom Honda.
Nice. Is that like yours, Luke? No. Okay. All right.
Was yours more than $15?
No.
Sorry, Luke.
Yeah.
It's a good story. If you see Luke around town,
Okay.
ask him about his $17.
That's perfect.
It's awesome.
That's perfect.
It's a great story.
That's perfect.
All expense paid trip to anywhere. Where do you go?
Well, start in southern Germany and then head down into Switzerland. The wife and I were actually going to make that our honeymoon, and then all the flights got canceled.
Crap.
Bummer. Looking forward to that hot chocolate.
Well, hot chocolate and Jägerschnitzel.
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 All right.
It's fun to say.
As we wind down here, any last messages for the voters? Luke, where do you want them to look?
Going to look up there?
Right up there.
Okay. Well, November 8th is the date to vote. If you really want to see, if you're happy with the way things are going, if you're not happy with the way things are going, it behooves you as, I'm sorry, man. What's your name?
Tyler.
I'm sorry, Tyler.
That's
It's
okay.
been a long day.
That's all right.
It behooves you, as Tyler said, to really get out there and do the research yourself. Council members, mayor, commissioners, everybody else, get out there and find out what they have to say, because at the end of the day, voting is free. It's the day that you're the star of the show, so be prepared when that time comes.
Be the star.
Yeah.
Be the
Who doesn't
star.
want to be the star?
That's right. Not me. Just kidding.
That's why we got a podcast.
That's why we have a podcast. So, thanks, Jeremiah, for coming in.
Thank you
We
very
really
much.
appreciate it. Good luck. Get out there and vote. And
Be the
thank you
star.
for tuning in. Be the star.
All right.
Star Swipe. The more you know. All right. We've got Terry Lockemeyer here with us. And thank you for coming in and being with the Buffalo Community Podcast. Why don't you take a second to introduce yourself and that camera right there, and we'll get started with our questions.
Well, thanks, you guys. This is one of my highlights of my life, to come in and do the podcast. I watch it. I'm a fan. I love it. We just got done talking about some of the people I love to watch on it. My name's Terry Lockemeyer. I am currently the mayor of Buffalo. I have been for 6 years, and I was on city council for 6 years prior to that. Quite active on council. I was on several different boards. Probably some of my favorite things were the collaboratives that I was able to become part of with the school districts, with the county, with the state, really making some good relationships so that as you are trying to get things accomplished, you can do it smoother because you know who to call and you know how to get things done. So that's a big part of that background and experience, but I'm married to David Greggy, have been for almost 30 years. I have 3 children. Dustin is my oldest. He's married to Kayla, and they have a 3-year-old, so I am a grandmother and very proud of it. Don't even feel the least bit bad about it, except I will not go gray and be called granny, but I like grandma. I'm good with it. Have a son, Garrett, who lives down in Minneapolis, and a daughter, Gabrielle, who's going to be moving back to Buffalo.
Very fun.
Cool.
Well, let's just jump right into
Sure.
it. And again, like all the candidates, they were given this list of ones, and we did add one, but it'll be one that came up in plenty of them.
Sure.
So what is one thing the city's doing very well, and what is one thing it needs to improve upon?
Well, you know, I really think we have great staff and customer service. I think we have very talented individuals that work for the city, very knowledgeable, and I think that's the highlight of the city portion. I think some of the things that we truly need to work on, we've heard about through the public. We've got some utility rates that people are very upset about. We need to make sure that people can afford to live in Buffalo. We need to make sure that people can work in Buffalo, have businesses in Buffalo. So looking at those rates and making sure that we're studying them, we're reducing and prioritizing some of our capital and capital costs, optimize our operations budget, our financial management for the utilities funds. You know, for years we were taking money from the electric utilities and putting into the general fund to kind of help with some of the costs in other areas of the city. I think we have to relook at that. Not be a dollar amount, but maybe a percentage. And it be an annual thing that we can count on, but it can go towards things that are really giving back to the community. One of the things I think that's one of the things I'm thinking we're working for. And also we have to do a lot of education. We have to remind people when we do have droughts, we're going to educate the public about conservation. I think we got a little bit of bad press there when we were having our off and on days of water. But that was really just making sure we were educating people on our aquifer. Another thing that I think is really huge, and it kind of came up during some of the questions, is we need to invite the public in more for conversations. Maybe we have to have some listening groups. I think especially with what's going on in town right now with some of these open spaces that have become available, we need to make sure people are part of that conversation, because I don't want people to think that the decisions have been made, that no decisions have been made on anything. It's usually a process that takes place. So I really would like to see maybe some listening groups, smaller, people that have passion for that topic. And I think that can be done very easily. You know, you're going to get people who are interested in certain areas of the city. Don't ask them to come in for the whole thing, because I think that's overwhelming. But just if you have a topic you want to, we have listening groups that people can come in and give their insight.
Sure.
Cool. I'm going to jump down to question 7.
Sure.
Because question 1 has always led to question 7.
It's true.
What is their plan to address the cost of utilities? Can they be brought down, and how?
Well, like I said, that's one of the issues that are a hot topic out there. We can't control natural gas, you guys. It's the highest it's been in 14 years. So we've got this thing called a power cost adjustment right now. It's happening all over the world. It's not just Buffalo, Minnesota. Everybody's experiencing this 4% little thing that shows up on your bill that you pay on top of your bill. So that we can't control. Nothing a city can do about that. But we work with MMPA, and they're a collaborative with other cities. We can do things within our relationship with them, and we can work with internal things that we already probably work with budgeting, and things I mentioned before, optimize our budget, fiscal responsibility. Study the rates, make sure that we're being fair, that we aren't the lowest price, but we aren't the highest price. But I think we should be competitive. You have to be competitive because that keeps our services high. Customer service, that's one thing. I think if someone has an outage and literally my phone rings at 2 a.m. and there's an outage, I know who to call.
Ghostbusters.
Now, right. But we set things in place now that you can see where the outage is, things like that. So that customer service has risen. And I think the other thing that is key to this is if you're a utilities like Wright Hennepin or Excel, can you call them and ask them to look at their rates?
No, I'm not aware of that.
I don't think you can. But with a city utility, we're listening. We hear. We want to do whatever we can. And again, I pay those rates. So I'm like everybody else. I want to be making sure we're responsible with our spending and making sure that we're studying the rates and educating everybody that's involved to give them the best possible customer service, rates, everything across the board.
Sure. I do like you talked about being more competitive. So with the city of Buffalo growing, but not quite at the rate of like St. Michael, Albertville, Otsego, Monticello, our surrounding communities, how does a city like Buffalo become more competitive in attracting businesses, commerce, anything like that, and move towards like taking care of our amenities that we already have, our needs, and then maybe shift some of those to the wants column? Like
Great.
We hear this a lot of like a community center.
I love that question, and I would say that I'm not going to talk about the things that we can't control, that they're on 94 and we're on 55 and 25. I'm not going to talk about that. It's a fact. But I think the things that we can do, and something we haven't done in 40 years, we have not had another commercial industrial park in Buffalo. And that kind of stops us because we ran out of land. We used it. It's all used up. So when we get people coming to the city and looking for a spot in Buffalo, we've created a map. Now we have an economic development person in place, and he put together this map, tells you, oh, you might fit really nice here, but if we don't have a space there, what do we do about that person? They still want to be in Buffalo, right? So I think we need to look at an industrial park, and we need to be cognizant that that's going to bring jobs. It's going to bring people who want to live here, because if you have an industrial park that has a warehouse or a manufacturing firm, or they can put new businesses of their own. Like, for instance, a big one that happened for me this past year was a landscaping business. People that came from Buffalo, could not put their business in the city limits, and they wanted to. And I'm thinking, why can't we put them somewhere? Well, we're going to need space. So I can tell you that that would be one of my top priorities in the next year, to look at space. And we already kind of have an idea of where we want to put it. It's within the city limits, and it's actually something that's easily put in the city limits. And I think it'd be a perfect spot because it's right off the main highway, and that's where businesses want to be. So I think that's a key. We're growing really well in the residential. We're growing in retail. I mean, if you look at, we've added 15 new businesses to Buffalo. And I was going to name them off, you guys, like really impress you.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people know what those businesses are. And it starts way back with What's the Scoop, That's 5 years. Hayes Public Health, that's almost 6 years. You've got Evelyn's. And as that order grows, we've got, Gather, we've got the Dunkin', we've got the two Caribou Coffees, we got, Alina. I didn't even talk about Alina Crossroads. That was one of the first ribbon cuttings I did when I became mayor 6 years ago. Coburn's. I mean, whoever thought we'd get Coburn's back again? There's so many more, and there are new ones always wanting to come. But we've got to have, if it's not in the downtown, we've got to have a space for them that would be accessible for people to get to, and kind of drive people to a certain area. Like I think we have a triangle kind of thing going on for commercial. We've got the Walmart, the Target, and the downtown. So you want to expand from the triangle.
Yeah.
I think those are ways that will continue to entice people to want to live here, work here, play here, retire here.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't want to get too off topic, but I don't want a freeway through Buffalo.
No.
And there are certain things that a freeway brings to your town.
Absolutely.
That are good, but I don't want a freeway running through here. So, anyway.
Thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Mark, I heard your little comment about that. I saw it on Facebook.
Oh, really?
You had a Facebook thing about this is what Buffalo looks like, someone's traffic.
Oh, sure.
It was very good. I mean, it was just what I think. I don't want traffic like that. So yeah, we want to make sure that we grow at a rate that we can handle it. So yeah.
What would you say is one hard truth or misconception about running a city that voters should know, and how do you plan to address that?
I address it quite often, but I don't know that the point gets across as wide as I'd like it to. When Sterling Drug closed, they said, why did the city let that close? And when the theater closed, they said, why did the city let the theater close? And then anything that closes, or why don't you have a Chipotle's in Buffalo? And I say, do you want to open a Chipotle's? Because I think it'd be really successful in Buffalo because everybody wants one, right? But cities don't open or close businesses, and I think that's a big misconception. We try to attract them with an economic development plan, with an economic development person, and when we know we want something, we can go out and address it or create a marketing strategy to bring a business, but we can't. The thing that drives businesses is the market. And one thing that I really want to stress is that if we don't give those businesses business, they don't stay here. People ask me, why didn't the theater make it? I went there. Well, the theater sold about 40,000 tickets a year, and they needed to sell 70,000 tickets. So there's a big discrepancy between those numbers, and I think that's, again, if we don't bring business to them, they can't survive. They have to pay, employees and work comp and building insurance and all the other things that businesses do to run. So we have to be cognizant of the businesses that we want to stay here. We have to give them our time, talent, treasure.
Speaking of attracting things, is we have a big building downtown that will be addressed because the county building already moved out of town, and now we have a big vacant building. What specifically is your vision for the government center? And then ideally, what would you like to see there? Those are two different questions.
Yeah.
Kind of like the logical vision and then if everything could become true.
I think when I say something, though, people think that it's going to happen, and that's not the truth. I'll give you a little history on it. The county owns it. We all know that. The building is zoned B5, which is a business district. The parking lot is zoned R2, which is single-family homes. So with that being said, the only thing that the city has any control over right now is the zoning. So I think when they put their bid for the RFPs out, developers were looking at the two zoning pieces and they were going, well, what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
So they're really looking to the city for direction, and they don't know what we want, right? So who would want to
Sure.
come in and buy a building that's going to cost you $2.5 million to take down when they don't even know if the city will agree with the plans? So I think this is going to take a lot of time and strategy. We have had discussions, and I would like to see, and I don't know how the public feels about this, but there's a road in front of that, 35, County Road 35, and the county is very serious about moving it. And I think that would be a number one plus for the community, because we've got to make this a win-win for the community. We know it's going to be someplace that's got to draw people to the downtown. We know that it has to be a want and a need, right? It has to be. Why would we even? It's going to be there for 100 years. So I don't think any one person can come up with that plan. I think it's going to have to be, I talked about these listening groups. We've done that a little bit, but it was more on the county side. And now, eventually, depending on how this all goes, they're going to have to heat that thing this winter. I don't think they're going to like the price tag on that. So I don't know how long it'll stay like this. I don't know what their thoughts are in that area. They do have an EDA developed. And of course, the county deserves some money to do other projects with their EDA. So there's all these things. Everybody talks about, I want restaurants downtown Buffalo. We need a venue in this city. We'd love a community center. Mm-hmm. Well, let's be strategic about it. Let's do some planning. Let's get some people in and find out if that's really what they want. Because in my mind, we deserve a community center. But I don't want to be in the same position as Monticello, where Excel is lowering their property value. And now all that development they did in Monticello, it's a wash, you guys. Because they've lost so much tax income from Excel that everything they've built there hasn't added to their tax base. It just evened them out, which is really sad when you think about how much building went on in Monticello, right? We want to be in a place where I think the public decides it. So I think it has to go on the ballot. I really do. It's a taxable issue. And I think strategically, if we do decide to put something like that on that site, it has to be something everyone wants, or a majority of people want.
Would there be some concern about that everybody they'd vote with their heart and not their mind?
Right.
I want this, not really realizing the economic impact of it. And likely the people voting for it might not be the ones paying for it.
True. Yeah.
Is there some danger in even putting that on there?
I think it
of a yes, no, let's get a...
I think it can't go on there until the strategic plan is in place. Like,
Sure.
How is it going to affect taxpayers? What will you put in the building and be useful to all ages and make sure... Again, a lot of that's been being done by some groups that have been formed for like 7-8 years, you guys. There's literally been ad hoc groups that have... And we've got one right now that they constantly do fundraisers, and it's our community theater, and they partnered up with the community center group, and they're constantly meeting and thinking of ways that they can generate an income and make sure that, they might have another avenue right now. I'm hearing from, the whispers and the walls. I don't know, but we'll see what happens. But I do think you're right. They're not even going to be able to go to the ballot without doing some kind of background check to see, if I own this house, how much is it going to cost me? What's going to be in that building? What's it going to cost us to build it? They're going to want specific. Everyone should have specifics. It can't be just something that we decide to do.
But even like renters at that point.
Absolutely.
Because they're all voters.
Yes.
So, okay.
I agree with you on that. That's very, very true, and something that probably hasn't been thought through yet.
Sure.
Yeah.
That would be a surprise.
Yeah, yeah.
Speaking of renters, this one, it was an email into us, is this person had moved out to Buffalo after college and was briefly in one of the apartment buildings before buying a house. Mm-hmm. His question is, do you think there's more demand for multifamily zoning, and so our growing city has more housing diversity?
The thing that we found is we need housing diversity. I think you see a lot of 400 plus homes, right? Mm-hmm. But what about those young families that come to Buffalo and want to start from the apartment? And I think, didn't we talk about this, Tyler? You came from an apartment when you first moved here?
No.
You didn't? Okay,
Nope.
Somebody I talked to said that. You guys are so popular.
Maybe it was this person.
It could have been. But yeah, I agree. I think we need to have diverse housing, and it has to be like cost points. And, I hear a lot from seniors, what about affordable senior housing? What are you doing for them? And so there's constantly needs, and I got a lot of slack. The council got a lot of slack. The city got a lot of slack from Havenwood and from the Aloe, but both of them were full to capacity. They are both full to capacity. They recently opened up their, the Aloe did a list, and actually a friend of mine moved in this week. She's moving in, and she's just raves about it. She loves it. She says it's the most beautiful apartment in Buffalo, and I'm over at Havenwood quite often, and those people are very thankful that they are, able to live in the city limits, have the view they have. I'd like to have a little more accessibility for them, like a few more things downtown that they could enjoy with family members that come to visit. But other than that, there's always a need for diversity, and that'll happen. It's happening. I mean, you guys know right now, if you looked at the website, another thing we do really well is we've created, our list of state of the city, telling people what's coming. And it's on the website, and it's on my mayor's page. So those are things, you'll see the housing developments. There's like 6 going on right now as we speak. So quite a bit going on.
Cool.
Apartments and housing and senior living.
One more easy question before we get to the hard questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay. From the council forum in previous weeks, what do you feel was your favorite question to answer, and what's one maybe you'd like to expand on or clarify?
I think my favorite question, and it's such a fluffy one, what do you like to do in Buffalo? I know it was a fluffy one, but you guys, I am literally I think Buffalo is one of the funnest cities to just hang out. I'm doing Saturday with girls. A bunch of girls and I are getting together, and we're just going to go, it's Girls' Day Out, hanging out downtown. I love, and I'm a big fan of Hayes Public House, only a couple doors over. I know because Mark and I see each other there a little bit. I know, right? But that was one of my favorite questions. One that I probably would want to expand on, and I didn't really, I think when I answer a question, I really want to get everything out. As you notice, I like to talk. So
we haven't noticed it all today.
Right. I don't really miss anything in that area. So there's probably other questions that were related to something I'd want to expand on. You guys asked really good questions, so I was able to do that through now. So
Perfect.
I think I'll leave that one.
I want to add one because it's been added on every single candidate that's been through so far, is there's a lot of questions, and this is an add-on question because it didn't come up organically, is a lot of people talk about transparency and information and all of that. And my question has always kind of been a pushback one is, isn't it a responsibility of the citizen to be involved and engaged in their own community and less of the city to be omnipotent and make sure people understand what they're talking about?
I think it's both. I think the main purpose of a city is to be transparent. No one should have to wonder what we spend money on. A budget should be completely on our website, accessible to anybody who lives in the city. They should know what we pay, what things cost us. I mean, for instance, there was a little misled question, how much it cost us for the lawsuit with the flag. And I gave the incorrect number. I said $8,500. It was $10,427 over 2 years. Someone out in the public had said for $2 million. So why would we put that out there if we never paid that? But it should be, if we did, that the $10,427 is going to be on there because that's what we paid. That's transparency. And I think it's really cool because the city sold the golf course and people knew they said it sold at a loss. We had an appraisal. We got more than the appraisal, but we had a lot of money invested in it. So they're saying it's a loss. Yes. But did you want us to hold on to it? The transparency is they knew that we had more debt. That's transparency. When people know those kind of things, I think we do provide good information. We've done State of the City videos to make sure people know what's coming, what we've done for the year. We're doing votes. We do flash vote for the public to engage if they'd like. I do a newsletter twice a year, big one, always. And we were putting them in places people say, now we don't do the paper anymore, so we just do it online. And our staff. You ask any staff a question, and they will find you the answer. The transparency is, if you want the information, you're right, you might have to ask, and you might have to look on the website. And we upgraded our website, so it's user-friendly, and everything's there. Everything's there. Their responsibility is just ask, and we'll point them to who can give them the answer or show them where it's at on the website.
Sure.
I don't remember, but that's come up more than once. In the strengths with other candidates, we've they've
that's
talked
cool.
about
how
easy it is to work with city staff and how knowledgeable they are, and how to get information is not difficult.
Yeah, and I think my pushback stems from these community posts of people just kind of complaining on social media. And personally, I don't live in the city limits, so I can't even vote in this. So let's not even get
You don't
down
have
that
any
road.
skin in the game?
No,
Is that
not
what
at
you-
all.
Got it.
No, I'm
Okay.
just a local podcast host. But there's so much more than just complaining about it on social media. And that's my annoyance of really? Go ask. Walk into this. That's my point. That's why I always ask that
Well,
question.
I'm glad you brought it up, because a lot of people say, why isn't the mayor answering? Would you answer on Facebook?
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to answer on Facebook. If you give me a call, I put my
Yeah.
phone number in there. I put my phone, 763-464-4732. Give me a call and I'll tell you exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
But unless there's not this want for you to actually, I'm not going to bite anyone's head off. I'm not going to yell at anyone. If you have a legitimate question, I'm going to go find the answer if I don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk to people. I literally am like that open book person. Usually it's written across my forehead, or I tell you, or it's somewhere visible, because I love to tell people what's going on in the city and who to contact if you want to know something. So I don't know if those people are afraid, or if something happened that they were turned off by something they had asked, and that is not my intention. If I ever did that, forgive me, and I want you to try again, and I'll do better if that was me. And if someone else did, tell me about it, and we'll have a talk, because I don't want people to feel like they can't ask questions.
Yeah. That's good. I'm satisfied.
All right, on to the difficult questions.
Ooh,
Dun, dun, dun.
What's your favorite food?
chicken everything. Chicken soup, wings, chicken in a pasta.
I said, tell you, chicken soup's not
salad.
the first thing that comes to my mind with chicken.
Isn't it?
No.
Fried chicken, you
Maybe
name
chicken wings.
Chicken wings, yeah.
Okay.
But chicken. My dad used to make fun of me because I used to eat the end of the bone off when I was really little, and I don't know why. I don't know why, but
Because you love chicken.
I love chicken, so it's not changed. I
Sure.
don't eat the end of the bone, but I do eat chickens.
Sure.
Awesome.
What's your favorite hobby?
I love Pinterest. I'm kind of a Pinterest freak, so I'm on Pinterest, and my husband says, "Are you going to the Dollar Tree again?" I'm like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go get some stuff to make something. So I love Pinterest. I love to make things. I love to craft. I like making chicken noodle soup for people that are sick. That's a hobby, by the way. And I
There you
freeze
go.
it. Yeah. So if you're ever sick, you can give me a call.
There's nothing like buying $80 worth of craft materials to build a
Using-
$5 craft.
That's what my husband says. I
Yeah.
have buckets.
I get it.
buckets, yeah.
I get it.
Unknown caller.
Unknown caller.
Unknown caller.
Want to shut that
You'll
Bluetooth
know
off there,
later.
Luke? Thank you.
You just need an interruption.
yeah.
All expense paid trip to anywhere. Where do you go?
David and I are celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary, and the whole plan was Rome, Italy, Greece. And he goes, "Do we have to go to there?" I'm like, "Okay," so I canceled it. We're not going to go. That's my dream trip. I'll go someday. I'll probably have to go with my sister.
Yeah. Don't take him, though.
I thought it was going to be super romantic, but
Hey, it's
that's
half
okay.
off if
Yeah.
you don't go with him.
That's true. Dang. Okay. I might still go. Kidding.
Yeah. So we'll have you look at this camera for your any last message to the voters.
Yes. My message to the voters is, when you interview someone for a job, you look at their qualifications. And I think I've proven myself with leadership skills. I've proven myself in financial fiscal responsibility and paying down the debt, $16.5 million. Increasing, and I didn't do it alone, obviously, there's people in the background, but that is something I will continue to do and want to do. We've got our A rating, an A minus rating. We start out with an A plus, and we go to an A minus. That's A minus is a higher than that, believe it or not. I've been involved. I've given time, talent, and treasure for 40 years. I love this community, and I feel the way you do. I want utilities under control. I want taxes to be reasonable. I want people to be able, of all ages, of all walks of life, to be able to live in Buffalo. I want the amenities that you want. I want the small town feel that you feel. I feel it when I hang out downtown Buffalo, and that's why I do, because I feel it. And it's all about community. It's all about us being together and being Buffalo strong. We need to care about each other. We need to continue what we started, and we need to communicate. So care, connect, and continue are our Buffalo Strong, and we are strong together. And I'm looking for your vote on November 8th. And even if you don't want to vote for me, please vote, because it's important and it is your voice. And I thank you for your time. And thank you guys for allowing me to come in. This has been a pleasure, as usual.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in, and we'll wrap it up. Good luck.
All right, thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the mayoral candidates of Buffalo, Minnesota. Thank you, Terry and Jeremiah, for coming into the the studio, and getting to know them a little bit better. And thank you for all of you who have actually submitted a question and all of your concerns. For the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Tyler Reese.
I'm Mark Benzer.
And Luke's behind the camera.
Luke.
Thanks for listening to the Buffalo Community Podcast, produced by Edlin Media. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube, as well as anywhere you listen to podcasts.